Welcome to our deep dive into the compassionate.
Okay.
It's an excerpt from the Quran, and we'll be exploring, its poetic verses, which describe the marvels of creation, contrasting destinies, all that.
Right.
It's structured in these, really beautiful verses, focusing on creation.
Okay.
And then contrasting the fate of, the righteous and the guilty.
Right.
And throughout the whole thing, it asks this question: so which of your Lord's marvels will you deny? So get ready for some thought-provoking imagery and a challenge to, see the world with fresh eyes.
Yeah, it's almost like, an invitation on a journey through these verses, encouraging reflection on, the divine, the natural world, and our place in it all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's start, right at the beginning with the creation of man from clay and jinn from fire.
Right.
What's, interesting to you about these contrasting elements?
Well, first, for those unfamiliar, jinn in Islamic theology are spiritual beings created from smokeless fire
Okay.
with their own free will,
Right.
just like humans.
Yeah.
And the contrast with humans being formed from clay is quite deliberate, I think.
Okay.
It could symbolize these inherent differences between these beings, their origins,
Okay.
and perhaps even alludes to the different paths and choices, laid out before them.
That makes me think about how clay is very grounded and tangible, while fire is more ephemeral, energetic.
Yeah,
It's this reflection of the material versus the spiritual aspects of existence.
I like that.
Yeah.
And this contrast is further emphasized as the chapter progresses.
Okay.
It moves on to describe these breathtaking scenes of the sun and the moon in their orbits, stars and trees prostrating and the sky being raised.
Right.
Yeah.
I can almost feel the sense of awe and majesty in those descriptions.
What's fascinating is, this imagery isn't just about poetic beauty. It evokes this sense of order, balance, and purpose in the universe.
Right.
It's worth noting that many ancient civilizations were deeply fascinated by celestial movements. They saw them as divine signs.
That reminds me of how even today we're still captivated by the stars.
Yes.
And trying to understand the cosmos.
Exactly. And then there's that really impactful verse about, setting up the balance and the warning against transgressing it.
Okay.
It states, "He has set up the balance so that you may not transgress in the balance. Weigh with justice and do not fall short in the balance."
So this is where the creation story and the concept of balance really start to connect for me.
This idea of balance is central, wouldn't you say? It applies not just to the physical world, but to our actions, our choices, our interactions with others. It reminds us that there's this delicate equilibrium,
Right.
Harmony to be maintained, in every aspect of life.
And this chapter doesn't just stay focused on the heavens.
Right.
It moves on to describe earthly wonders like fruits,
Oh.
palms, grains, fragrant plants.
Yes.
It's almost like a celebration of all the bounty that the earth provides.
Absolutely. And it's interesting to think about the historical context here.
Okay.
These verses highlight resources that have been essential for the development of human civilization, agriculture, the cultivation of crops.
Right.
All of these have shaped our societies in profound ways.
And then there's this stunning imagery of pearls and coral emerging from the sea.
These have been prized for their beauty and value across so many cultures throughout history.
Right.
They're almost like a gift from the ocean emerging from its depths.
Yeah.
And then there's this striking verse about ships towering like landmarks on the sea. Imagine those ancient vessels, navigating vast distances.
Yeah.
It really captures human ingenuity.
Yeah.
And our connection to the sea.
It definitely makes you appreciate the scale of it all.
Yeah.
And how connected everything is. But then the chapter kind of shifts gears.
Okay.
Introducing this really intriguing concept: Lord of the Two Easts and Lord of the Two Wests.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a verse that sparked much discussion and interpretation.
Okay.
Some scholars interpret it as a reference to literal geographical locations.
Okay.
The points of sunrise and sunset.
Okay.
Highlighting the vastness of God's dominion.
Okay, so it makes sense. It's a poetic way of encompassing the whole world.
Right.
Yeah.
but others view it more symbolically.
Okay.
It could be a representation of duality, the interplay of light and darkness, perhaps, or the balance between, opposing forces within ourselves and the world around us.
So it could be about like the vastness of creation, but also like the internal struggles we face as humans.
Exactly. And, right alongside this idea of the two easts and wests, we encounter this image of two seas merging but remaining distinct.
Right.
Separated by a barrier.
I'm like really curious about that imagery.
Yeah.
What kind of barrier are we talking about?
The chapter describes it as an unbreachable barrier.
Okay.
But it doesn't get into specifics.
Okay.
Some see it as a literal phenomenon, like where fresh water and salt water meet. It could be a reminder that even as things come together, they can maintain their distinct identities.
I like that interpretation. It resonates with like the idea of unity and diversity.
And others see, more symbolic meaning.
Okay.
Maybe it points to boundaries and limits that exist, even amidst a sense of interconnectedness.
Right.
Perhaps it's about the limits of human understanding, the things we can't fully grasp.
It's interesting how this image can be interpreted on both like a physical and a metaphorical level.
Right.
We've been talking about the wonders of creation, the balance, the vastness.
Yeah.
But then there's the shift towards the themes of transgression and judgment, right?
Yes. The compassionate doesn't shy away from reminding us about the consequences of our actions.
Okay.
It emphasizes personal accountability and warns against disrupting the balance that's been established.
And this leads us to the Day of Judgment,
right?
A fundamental concept in Islam where all souls will be judged for their actions. The chapter describes a scene where humans and jinn aren't directly questioned about their sins.
Right.
Instead, the guilty are simply recognized by their marks.
It's a powerful image, isn't it?
Yeah.
It speaks to the idea that our choices, our actions, they have a lasting impact, leaving a mark on our soul, so to speak. Yeah. It's a reminder that divine justice prevails, regardless of whether our transgressions were public or private.
It's like a stark contrast to the beauty and awe we've been discussing so far. And then there's this vivid description of hell with its seething bath and punishments of fire and brass.
Yeah.
It's hard not to feel a sense of dread when reading those verses.
It's definitely intended to be unsettling.
Yeah.
It's a reminder of the severity of the consequences for those who choose a path of transgression and stray from the divine path.
So we've gone from the grandeur of creation to this harsh reality of punishment.
Yeah.
But then the chapter takes us to a completely different scene.
Yeah.
The rewards of paradise.
Right.
Yeah.
It paints this picture of lush gardens, flowing springs, an abundance of fruits. A place of beauty, peace, and fulfillment.
It's a stark contrast to the image of hell.
Yeah.
A reminder of the different destinies that await based on our choices. The chapter describes these gardens in great detail, with furnishings lined with brocade, readily available fruits, green cushions, and exquisite carpets.
It's almost like a feast for the senses.
Yeah. It is.
The imagery is incredibly luxurious and inviting, meant to convey a sense of complete joy and contentment. The symbolism of gardens as paradises is found in many cultures and religions.
Right.
It represents a return to a state of innocence and harmony with nature.
And it's not just about material comforts, right?
Right.
There are also descriptions of these beautiful maidens.
Yes.
Untouched and pure, who resemble rubies and corals.
Yeah.
They seem to represent something beyond just physical beauty.
Yes, they symbolize purity, grace, and perhaps a deeper spiritual connection. And it's interesting how the chapter emphasizes that, everything in paradise comes in pairs.
Okay.
Fruits, companions, even the gardens themselves.
Right.
It could be seen as representing perfect harmony and completion.
It's a fascinating contrast to the earthly realm, where we often experience things as fragmented or incomplete.
Right. And amidst all these descriptions of paradise, the chapter keeps coming back to that central question. Is the reward of goodness anything but goodness?
Right.
It's a gentle nudge.
Yeah.
Encouraging us to reflect on the inherent connection between our actions and their consequences.
It's a beautiful way of framing it.
Yeah.
Instead of focusing on fear of punishment, it emphasizes the natural outcome of choosing a path of goodness and righteousness.
Exactly.
There's so much more to unpack here.
Yeah.
And we've only just begun to explore wonders and challenges presented in the compassionate.
Right.
What, awaits us as we delve deeper into these verses?
Well, we'll be venturing into some of the more mysterious aspects of this chapter.
Okay.
Exploring descriptions of the unseen realm. And the nature of those who inhabit it.
Okay.
Get ready for some thought-provoking concepts.
Yeah.
And imagery that will challenge your understanding of reality itself.
I can't wait. This is where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
We'll be back after a short break to continue our exploration of the compassionate. Stay tuned.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the compassionate. Before we were talking about those vivid descriptions of paradise, those gardens and the companions, and it got me thinking, how these descriptions might be pointing towards something bigger.
Okay.
Something beyond, our everyday experience.
That's a great observation. It's like the chapter is starting to, lift the veil on this whole unseen realm.
Okay.
Inviting us to consider what exists, beyond what we can see and touch.
Right.
We hear about these 4 gardens.
Okay.
2 of which are described as deep green with gushing springs.
It definitely sparks a lot of curiosity.
Yeah.
What do you make of these descriptions of the unseen?
Well, in many interpretations, the 4 gardens represent different levels of paradise.
Okay.
Each with its own, blessings and beauty.
Uh-huh.
It suggests that the rewards of the afterlife aren't one size fits all,
right,
but rather cater to the individual's, spiritual development and deeds.
So it's not just about getting into paradise, but about what you experience once you're there.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And then we have those intriguing verses about companions in paradise.
Right.
Who are described as secluded, untouched by humans or jinn. It's like they exist on a completely different plane.
I'm fascinated by this idea of beings that are untouched by humans or jinn. Yeah. What does that tell us about, their nature?
It's definitely open to interpretation.
Okay.
But some scholars see them as, representing a higher spiritual state. Perhaps even, angelic beings.
Okay.
Their untouched nature could signify their purity and closeness to the divine.
It ties back to that question woven throughout the chapter. So which of your Lord's marvels will you deny?
Right.
It's like we're being challenged to expand our understanding of what's possible.
Absolutely. The compassionate is encouraging us to, not only appreciate the wonders we can see, but also to contemplate the unseen.
Okay.
The mysteries that lie beyond our current understanding.
As we've been, delving into these verses, I've been really struck by the, sheer variety of marvels being presented.
Yeah.
We've moved from the creation of humans and jinn to the celestial movements of the sun and moon,
right,
the abundance of the earth, the vastness of the sea, the concept of divine justice, and then the stark contrast between hell and paradise.
It's truly a remarkable, tapestry of images and ideas.
Right.
And it's all woven together with this thread of awe and wonder.
Yeah.
The chapter seems to be, prompting us to look around and recognize the power and majesty of creation,
yeah,
in all its forms.
And that recurring question, so which of your Lord's marvels will you deny?
Right.
It feels like a personal invitation to reflect on our own lives, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It challenges us to examine our own perspectives and beliefs. What marvels, big or small, do we fail to notice in the business of our daily lives?
It's a powerful reminder to cultivate a sense of gratitude and appreciation.
Yeah.
It's so easy to take things for granted, to lose sight of the beauty and wonder that surround us.
And it's also an invitation to keep exploring, to delve deeper into the mysteries of the world and the universe.
Right.
There's always more to learn, more to discover if we remain open and curious.
So to shift gears a bit,
okay,
in the last part, we were discussing hell.
Right.
And the chapter doesn't shy away from describing those punishments in detail.
Yeah.
But then we're presented with this equally detailed description of paradise.
Right.
What do you make of that juxtaposition?
It's interesting, isn't it? It's the chapter is deliberately highlighting the stark contrast between these two destinies.
Okay.
It's not simply about abstract concepts of reward and punishment. It's about making those concepts tangible, visceral even,
right,
so that we could fully grasp, the implications of our choices.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah.
So the details are meant to really drive home the point, to make us feel the weight of those choices.
Exactly. And it's not just about the grand scheme of things either.
Okay.
The chapter goes into detail about the pleasures of paradise, the beauty of the gardens, the taste of the fruits,
right,
the feel of the furnishings.
Right. It even describes the companions in paradise as having modest gazes and pearls as their adornment. It's incredibly specific.
Yeah.
What do you think is the significance of those details?
I think it highlights that paradise isn't just some vague ethereal concept.
Okay.
It's a place of tangible, sensual experiences.
Right.
A place where all the senses are fulfilled. The descriptions are meant to evoke a longing for that perfection, to inspire us to strive for a life that leads towards such a reward.
I'm curious about those descriptions of the matings in paradise.
Okay.
They're depicted as being incredibly beautiful with comparisons to rubies and corals.
Yeah.
But there's also this emphasis on their purity and modesty.
That's an important point. The beauty being described isn't simply superficial.
Okay.
It's a reflection of inner purity and spiritual radiance. And the emphasis on modesty reinforces the idea that paradise is a place of perfect harmony.
Right.
Free from any form of baseness or transgression.
It seems like everything in the compassionate is carefully chosen to convey a specific message or idea.
Absolutely. Every word, every image is deliberate.
Right.
And it's up to us, the readers, to contemplate those choices, to delve deeper and uncover the layers of meaning, woven into the text.
So as we continue our exploration of the compassionate, what other marvels and mysteries await us?
We'll be delving into the chapter's commentary on, the societal issues.
Okay.
Focusing on the importance of justice, charity, and kindness towards all beings.
I'm looking forward to unpacking those themes.
Yeah.
It sounds like this chapter offers a lot of guidance on how to live a meaningful and fulfilling life, both in this world and the next.
It definitely provides a roadmap for those seeking to walk a path of, righteousness and compassion.
Right.
And remember, even though we're analyzing the text, it's important to approach it with a sense of humility and openness to its deeper message.
Well said. We'll be back after a short break to continue our exploration of the compassionate. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the compassionate. It's amazing how this chapter constantly shifts between these grand cosmic scenes and very intimate human experiences.
Right.
We go from the creation of the universe to these really detailed descriptions of gardens and companions and even furnishings and fabrics.
Yeah, that interplay really highlights the interconnectedness of everything, wouldn't you say?
It's like the chapter is saying that the same divine force that created galaxies also cares about the details of our lives, our comfort,
right,
our experiences of beauty and companionship.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that we're not just, insignificant specks in a vast, indifferent universe.
Right.
We're part of something much grander, something intricately woven and purposeful.
Exactly. And that brings us back to that central question. So which of your Lord's marvels will you deny?
Right.
It's not just about acknowledging the wonders of creation on a grand scale. It's also about recognizing our own place within it.
Right.
Our own inherent worth and potential.
And maybe it's also about, recognizing those marvels in our everyday lives,
Yeah.
the seemingly small things we often overlook.
Right.
Like those little acts of kindness, the moments of connection, the beauty that's often hidden in plain sight.
It's like those everyday marvels are reflections of a larger divine compassion that permeates the universe. A ripple effect starting from the very act of creation and extending outwards into every aspect of existence.
I love that imagery. So it's not just about recognizing the big, obvious marvels, but also tuning into those subtle expressions of compassion that are all around us.
Right.
It makes me wonder if practicing that kind of attentiveness could change how we see the world and how we interact with each other.
It's a powerful idea to consider, isn't it?
Yeah.
What if simply noticing those small acts of compassion could make us more compassionate ourselves?
As we near the end of our deep dive into the compassionate, what is one final thought you would like to leave our listener with?
The chapter ends with these beautiful verses. So which of the favors of your Lord would you deny? Peace, a word from a merciful Lord. I think it's a fitting reminder that amidst all the marvels, all the challenges, all the contrasting destinies described in this chapter, there's an underlying message of peace and mercy.
That's a beautiful note to end on, a reminder that even in the face of difficult realities, there's always hope. always compassion.
I encourage you to reflect on the marvels, big or small, that often go unnoticed in your own life. How might recognizing them shift your perspective, your sense of gratitude, your way of interacting with the world?
What a perfect invitation to continue exploring the rich imagery and timeless themes of this incredible chapter. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the compassionate. We hope it sparks some new insights and a sense of wonder about the world around us.